Hello and welcome to Make Sense. I am your host, Brittany Haley, and today we are joined by our guest, Sean Simonini from the Massachusetts Association of School Representatives, the founder, and we are going to be talking today about the House Bill 4199, which is an act relative to financial literacy. So welcome, Sean. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me on, Brittany. I appreciate it a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about the Massachusetts Association for School Representatives.
Yeah, so the association was started a couple of years ago when I was a student representative in high school on the Billerica Public School Committee. I was elected by my peers to serve and represent over 5,000 students within the district. And Massachusetts is a unique state that has the student representative system ingrained within our state statute. We formed the association to bring together all of these students because we realized that there wasn't a lot of training, there wasn't a lot of networking or advocacy happening on their behalf. And this is a really niche set of individuals who have an opportunity to make a meaningful change in their districts, so we wanted to uplift and support them as much as possible.
Wow, that's awesome. So what is the mission of MASR?
Yeah, so it's primarily to network and to train these individuals. When we think about our average school committee members, right, the adult members on the board, so to say, they have an entire association that already provides them with annual training, with resources such as handbooks, and with networking opportunities at annual conferences. We see this for superintendents, for principals, for coaches, for guidance counselors, for virtually every other school official you could imagine. So we are effectively doing the same exact thing, right? We're providing an annual conference, we provide digital resources for them, workshops, so on and so forth. But we also bring a unique thread that some other groups don't necessarily, which is an advocacy component. These students are very tapped into their student bodies. They know what the students need. And this became very evident during COVID, which was when I served on my school committee. And so one of the things we wanted to do was provide these students across the state a forum to uplift those ideas that they were hearing from their student bodies. One of those things that we ended up hearing a lot about was the lack of financial literacy education here in the Commonwealth. We turned that around into a student-led effort to go connect students with their legislators on the Capitol and Beacon Hill and beyond.
Awesome. So can you tell me a little bit about the bill and your support of the bill?
Yeah, so House Bill 4199 is a beautiful piece of legislation. It does what a lot of pieces of legislation haven't been able to do here in the Commonwealth over the past several decades, and that is to set out a vision of how we could ensure every single student in this state takes a standalone course in personal finance before they graduate. We know that 25 other states in the U.S. have already made that promise to their students, that every student graduates knowing how to do their taxes. They know what a credit score is. They understand the implications of taking out student loans. We are not teaching that to our students here in Massachusetts, but this is a skill that's applying to 100% of Massachusetts residents. They understand math. They understand how to read. They understand history. But yet we're failing them on one of these most critical topics. But another thing that I think the bill does that's really unique and important is it creates a financial literacy trust fund. Now, what this would do would, subject to appropriation by the legislature, provide funding to local districts through a grant process to ensure that the implementation of this, A, isn't overburdening the districts, and that B, financial literacy education is being implemented in an equitable fashion.
And can you tell me why students that you come in contact with are interested in advocating for this?
I think we see the relevance of it so much, Brittany, right? Like, students see what they need the most, right? I remember when I was 16, right, going and applying for my driver's permit, right, getting my driver's license, going out, getting my first job on the weekends. Many of these students are starting to confront personal finances, and what we're seeing is that a lot of them aren't getting that sort of education at the home. And I think that's an assumption that we're falsely making. We're thinking that, oh, they're learning it from their parents, right? You know, you have the discussion, you know, here's a credit card, here's your allowance, here's the piggy bank, right? Those aren't discussions that are actually happening in every single household. We know that more than 50% of parents in this country feel uncomfortable talking with their kids about finances. And so that's why I think this is such an important point for so many kids, is they're looking around at their education, spending all the hours that they do in those classrooms, and they're asking themselves, what am I walking away with in terms of tangible skills? How is this education really benefiting me? And I think what's glaring back at them is that absence of this very important skill, which is the ability to understand and manage their personal finances.
And recently there was a joint committee education hearing
Yep.
for this bill, and some students testified. Some students testified for this bill, and how many were there?
Some is light, to say the least. We had almost 24 students there, Brittany. 24 student representatives, student government leaders, and just general students who took a day out of school, who took time off to go to the state capitol in Boston to testify before the Joint Committee on Education and to connect with their legislators about this bill as well. And I'm happy to talk a little bit more about why it's so important to them, but I think that turnout in and of itself just shows the magnitude of how important this is. There aren't a lot of other bills that the Joint Committee on Education has seen this session where they've had almost 24 students show up in person to testify, and that's in addition to some of the students who took advantage of the virtual option to testify later in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I know from a facilitation standpoint, being from a financial institution,
Of course.
I'm part of an advocacy group for grades K through 16 where they advocate for financial education in the state. And I know that a lot of them were present there as well.
Yep.
And to know that there's so many people in support of this bill from all different avenues, whether it be financial avenues, education avenues, students, staff, administration alike, is just so inspiring to someone like me in my role. Now, you said you could talk a little bit more about why the students testified in support. Can you kind of explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you talk about the Financial Empowerment Network, right, and all the organizations, we have groups from the MASR Collaborative looking at this from an economic empowerment standpoint. We have banks and we have credit unions looking at this from a business standpoint. How do we create financially responsible lenders one day, right, and account holders? I think for the students, the way they're coming at this is understanding that this bill might not impact them in their, their education process, and that's okay. They're coming at this understanding that this is a service to the next generation, right? They understand that the previous generation didn't have the opportunity or wasn't able to punch through legislation like this for us to take advantage of. But we're trying to do that for the next generation. I mean, the points I mentioned earlier about the relevance of this to their daily lives now, here and now, is what drives a lot of these kids to be so passionate about it. But I think what really drives it home for them is the opportunity to look their younger siblings in the eyes, right? Or to look at the kindergartners or the first graders that they represent on their school boards and to say, hey, we're doing this for you. We're coming out to make sure that the next generation gets to take advantage of this. And to see so many young kids so emblazoned and passionate at that stage is the most inspiring thing for me to see.
Now, as far as the students testifying, it's a great example of civic engagement.
Absolutely.
What other type of civic engagement are your members involved in?
It's a great question. I like to say MASR is an amalgamation of civic engagement, right? In 2018, the legislature passed a law pertaining to civics education, actually. And that bill has had a lot of work, a lot of coalitional support behind it, similar to what we're building with financial literacy. And I look at MASR and I say, some of these kids who were the first ones to actually take an 8th grade civics course are now the student representatives on their school boards advocating for this legislation. The very fact that we have students sitting on school boards, connecting their peers with these local education agencies, is the essence of civic engagement. It is stakeholders achieving a seat at the table and having a say in the decision-making process that determines so much of their livelihoods as students. Some of the other ways that we are looking to get students involved is obviously beyond the boardroom. We're bringing students to the state capitol for a number of different bills, allowing them to advocate, to meet with their legislators. I always say this, Brittany, right? Even if this bill didn't pass this session, even if it didn't move a single inch further in the legislative process, we got over 20 students to go see the state capitol. 20 students to go meet their state legislators, to understand what a state representative or senator did, to go see the House floor, see the Senate floor, to see these institutions of democracy, which are so sacred in this day and age. The state capitals are the laboratories for democracy. And I think in Massachusetts, as well as what we're seeing in other states with the National Association of Student Board Members, is we're starting to see students gain more exposure to these laboratories of democracy, to understand their function, and to see themselves not just as students of this process, but participants in it.
I think it's really, really commendable, all of the work that you're doing. And I like to see that, I hate to say that Massachusetts is not, in the the forefront of this fight that we're kind of halfway through with the legislation for the whole country. But I love that this right now is in the House and it's getting the publicity that it needs because, like you've said, it really is a skill that everybody needs. And I know that as a credit union, Leominster Credit Union, the Financial Empowerment Network that I'm part of, as well as, you know, the different schools that I help out and help facilitate at as well, also see the need for this. And I just really commend all of your efforts. It really is inspiring to see somebody so passionate about making a difference in the lives of the next generation. I know that that's something that fuels me for the work that I do, and seeing that I can make a positive impact for future generations, for my children and for my students. And thank you so much for all of your efforts that you've put forth so far. And hopefully we'll see some changes come very soon to Massachusetts and the financial education system in general. Are there any other like closing remarks or anything that you want to make? Any other?
Well, I mean, first I want to say thank you. I appreciate that a ton.
I appreciate you being
but
here.
But one other thing I want to mention, kind of piggybacking off of your point, is that when it comes to this, right, seeing the young students getting involved is important. But I think it's even more vital to remember that this is an intergenerational and an intersectional effort. There is no person who I am aware of who is untouched by personal finances. Personal finances affect every single one of us. And that's why I say to anybody watching this, right, this is an opportunity for you to take action. This is an opportunity for you to research your state representative, to research your state senator, and to say, hey, I'm a constituent. How can I get involved with this? I support this bill for X, Y, Z reasons. This is the opportunity to get engaged. We are just two faces of a large coalition that spans so many different communities and so many different backgrounds. And we're hoping that hopefully, as this bill progresses, we can get more and more constituents, more parents, more adults, more community members, more community leaders involved in advocating for this bill to ensure that it progresses through our state legislature as fast as possible, and then hopefully send a ripple effect throughout the rest of the country.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. If you'd like to see a certain topic here covered on Make Sense, you can reach out to us at fined@leominstercu.com and let us know what you would like to learn about. And I hope that makes sense.